So how do you start somewhere new? Hi, welcome to 5 Minute Fika, where we find the time to do a little self-care of the soul by thinking about true and beautiful things. Well, last week we talked a little bit about how to say goodbye well. What do you do after you say goodbye well and you have to learn to say hello to somewhere new? You know, it's not easy. I've moved a lot. And I remember when I first moved to Washington, D.C., we had just left Germany. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know how to make friends or where to find them. And it was kind of tough. But I remember I went to Starbucks to do my Christmas cards in November. And you walk in, you order your drink, the barista wrote my name on the cup, and I sat down and I did my Christmas cards, and I didn't think much of it. But I went back the next day to finish my Christmas cards, and I walked in, and the barista said, "Heather!" And I was like, "Oh, somebody knows who I am." And it was very exciting. And so I started sort of hanging out around that Starbucks. And then I started bringing banana bread to the baristas before I realized that Starbucks actually makes and sells banana bread. And then I got to get to know some of the regulars that hung out there. And then we became friends, and now it's 11 years later, and we've moved away, but I'm still friends with a lot of those, my Starbucks friends. And we still have wonderful memories, and we still see each other and talk. And it's amazing because each place holds new people that I didn't know at one point in my life. You know, except for my family, everybody I know, at one point in my life, there was a time when I didn't know them. And that's very reassuring to remember when you're moving somewhere new. In Germany, it was a highly mobile society. It was a community of people that moved a lot because they were business expats, and a lot of times they would come in to work for a year or 2 years and then their families would leave. And so every year, every spring, at the end of the school year, I would sit with people who were upset and sad because their friends were moving away. And I remember I would always say, but there are people out there who just haven't moved here yet. You just don't know them yet, but at some point you will. And you'll say, well, how could I have lived without that person? And the only reason I know that is because I had to do that so many times. You know, when I first left Albania, I remember thinking, well, I will never love anyone like I love my orphans in the orphanage. Like, I love those kids so much. I'll never love anybody that much. Well, then I got to know the kids at the church youth group where we volunteered. And I realized once I got to know them how much I loved them. And I thought, well, how could I have lived without these kids? You know, if I had gotten what I wanted, if I had stayed, I would have never met some of the people who were some of my favorite people of my life. And so that's one thing to remember each time that you move, or each time that you start something new, or you start a new job, or you start a new role, or you start a new time in your life. You're going to meet people and you're going to have activities that you'll look back on and say, wow, how could I have lived without this? How could I have lived without this in my life? And just because you don't know what it is right now, well, that's okay. Someday you will. And you'll be able to say, wow, I had no idea these gifts were waiting for me. So part of being able to say hello well is knowing that those gifts are out there. Another thing to keep in mind when you move somewhere new or when you start something new is that the first phase of anything new always feels a little bit like a honeymoon. It doesn't quite feel like real life. It feels like you're just trying things out. I remember when I first went away to college, it felt like I was at camp, that I was just, going to be there for a few weeks. And there's a time, usually about 6 or 8 weeks in, where, the newness sort of wears off and you realize like, oh, this is my life now. And that can be hard. It can feel like you can kind of hit a wall. And that's when a lot of people get really homesick and a lot of people really struggle. You know, if you've made a decision to leave or to start something new, it can feel like, oh, did I make the right decision? What was I thinking? Why did I do this? It's okay. That's a totally normal response. That happens to a lot of people. So knowing going into it, you know what, you're going to have this time when you kind of hit a wall and you think, what was I doing? It's okay. That's normal. You'll get through it. It's just transitioning from this is a new thing to, oh, this is life now. Another tip that's helpful is research shows that one of the things that you can do to feel most comfortable in a new place is to hang up pictures. So one of the first things that you want to do to make somewhere feel like home is to put up pictures of your friends or your family, things that mean something to you. Go ahead and put stuff on your walls. Don't live with bare walls for a long time. That helps a lot. Life is full of transition. There are good transitions, there are bad transitions, but you can't fight it. We all go through transition at one point or another. There are all times that we have to say goodbye to places and people and things and relationships and identities and roles in life. We have to say hello to new things. And that can be a very stressful time, but it can also be a really beautiful time. because you'll discover new things about yourself. You'll discover new people. You'll discover new things that you love. You'll discover new opportunities and ways to grow and ways to be stretched. And that's good. And it may be painful, but that's okay. That's how life is sometimes. Sometimes the good things, the things that stretch you, hurt a little bit. But you get through it, and you'll see that you're stronger, and that you'll have things in your life that you say, well, how could I have lived without this in my life? People that you love. How could I have lived without so-and-so in my life? And it'll be fine, and you'll do great. And don't forget, no matter what you're going through, no matter what transition it is good to be alive. You are not in this alone. And you, my darling, are spectacular. Have a great day.